Greetings, Ranger fans. Jake here for another edition of Database Rangers Power Reviews, where we take a look back on the classic episodes of Database Rangers Power Reviews as we count down the 100 weeks to the final 100th episode of the series. So, welcome to Lex, Chris, Jenny. Good to see you. Good to see you all. I see people are still coming in. Congratulations to those of you who have managed to become fully vaccinated. I was one of those lucky few. Who was able to get my second shot all the way back in February. So I've been in good shape for a good long while now. It's one of the little benefits to being a teacher. In case any of you missed it, I did do a little Jake Says Hi update earlier in the week. Just to sort of remind everybody that, yes, there will be deeper looks and rapid run-throughs coming later in the month. They'll be released on Sunday mornings, just as they normally would, to cover the next 3 episodes of Power Rangers Dino Fury, which are coming exclusive to Netflix in the next, I believe, 11 days from now, which is coming up fast. Welcome, God. And I am hard at work on a new Conversations in Context. I know it's a little late for May, but I have been scripting it, and hopefully we'll be able to shoot and edit it this weekend to get it out quickly. It's a topic I've been wanting to cover for a few months now, so I'm glad that I've given myself an excuse to explore it. So a lot of stuff coming out. Next week, I should be able to finally film my pickup shots with my remaining actor for 93. I also have one of my actors come flying in, visiting the area for the next few weeks so that they can, and while they're here, we're going to be shooting some scenes from the finale, so that's exciting. Lot of moving parts now. I literally only have 2 days left of actually teaching, and then a few extra days of extra help for students to make up work before the end of the school year. So summer vacation is coming up fast, and I need to get myself ready by coordinating all my actors to shoot all their scenes over the course of these next 2 months, so that I can guarantee that we will hit this goal that we have been working towards of the 100th episode being delivered at the 10th anniversary of the series. So I'm excited. Welcome, Scott. Yeah, it's crazy. All this stuff is coming up fast. Yes, I'm looking forward to getting 93 out, and there's still a fair amount of work left to be done on 94. Because I'm still working to try and recover that footage. Unfortunately, the adapter that I came up with for the hard drive didn't quite work, so I may be searching for some other things on eBay, unfortunately. But fingers crossed, hopefully I can recover that audio footage and don't need to, do a bunch of ADR. But we'll see what happens. 95 has been making some really good progress with the footage that I have so far. And I've got some leads on some fabricating that needs to be done for a few pieces for the final episodes, as well as securing availability for one of my other actors with some vocal aspects of things without giving anything away. So yes, we have a lot of good stuff coming this June. Hopefully even more good stuff just rolling out throughout the whole summer. Now that we are more than a quarter of the way through these commentaries, it means that we've got just over 70 weeks left to get to the end of the series. So that gives me about 2 months per episode to release those final episodes, which is a little intimidating. 4 to go this year, 4 more to go next year, and then we're done. And we see where things go from there. But for right now, let us dive into the 29th episode by first covering our 3 equally non-controversial phrases. So, number 1, say with me, chat, Black Lives Matter. Number 2, say with me, chat, fascism is bad. And number 3, say with me, chat, superheroes are fun. So let's have some fun by reviewing some reviews of superheroes here. with the 29th episode of Database Rangers Power Reviews, our first ever classic look at Power Rangers SPD, Episode 9, Idol.
Previously on Power Review. Borrowed my camera. It was stolen. If there's anything I can do to make it up to you, you make sure to let me know.
And this is our Guy focus, so of course the previously on segment needs to focus on all the different mysteries surrounding Guy. And naturally the big bombshell from episode 27 where Dr. K vanished.
No, I do not need a co-host. Besides, I'm out of Megaforce episodes.
And I still just love Tom just sitting in the background of all of these shots. He was such a trooper throughout that whole thing.
Power Review.
And
Greetings, Ranger fans.
this is just...
Grab my camera. And Power Review. That looks like my camera.
I love Guy's reaction.
So, what I mean is, after the incident with the ninjas, I decided to get a new one, and I like the brand so much, so, as you can see, we have a new co-host joining us today. Why don't you introduce yourself, Guy? Because I don't want to. All right.
That is the perfect response to why don't you introduce yourself. And
as many of you may know,
I had so much fun playing off of Dave in these scenes.
Announced 3 weeks after the airing of their last episode, Prince Takes Night.
Who turns out to be the old
instead
friend.
of sitting around waiting for new episodes to come along, we decided. You decided. I decided to take a little walk.
Dave is such a great deadpan for me to play off of throughout this whole thing. And I really like the interplay here. Because I got to experiment with different styles of interactions in these co-host bits. As much as DB and K have their own dynamic, that worked really well with someone who... And of course, we wanted to make sure that Guy could properly pronounce the Japanese, because Dave had just come from Japan.
Although the series begins with the destruction of Orlandia, the story actually commences years earlier with Emperor Grum's attack on the planet Sirius.
This one was definitely one where...
You have well over 100 cards here. Is that a problem? I'm done with these. It was a show. Disney made it. Some guy named Kalish produced it. Can we move on? Yeah, sure. Sorry. The episode
I get way too much entertainment out of Dave being annoyed with me, because Dave, by all rights, really should be annoyed with me as a person, and he never is. And
Power Rangers SPD.
I appreciate him so much for that.
We're supposed to say it together. Really? Yeah, it'll be fun. Come on. 1, 2, 3. You didn't do it.
I'm having...
Come on, it's part of the stick. We're not moving on until we do this, are we? Fine.
I forgot how much fun this interplay was.
We kick things off
like,
with
this
our
was just...
opening credits. Easily one of the least controversial parts of the season.
Yeah.
As they feature the return of Ron Wasserman, known for being the creator of the original theme. And that guy that Saban keeps forgetting to rehire.
Oh, wow, Jenny. That's actually really funny. On Monday, my students are actually presenting their final projects, which is a video lesson of a self-selected physics topic. So that's pretty funny. Yes, if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. I'm used to answering physics questions via chat throughout the day. That was actually what I was doing for this morning.
But I'm sure that information is still vital, as were all of those explosions. Yeah, that's one of the more controversial things. But for now, let's not worry.
But yeah, this is almost... I feel like this is even more of an exaggerated conflict here between Guy and DB. Just because we had originally had, the sort of volatile relationship between antagonistic relationship between DB and K very early on. But they had grown together, they had gotten to know each other, they had become friends, and it had become, there was an honest friendship there. And then we bring in Guy, and it's not only reset back to that early antagonism, but it's gone even farther with someone who's just openly antagonistic rather than just snarky and skeptical.
They race to the scene in their Delta run, but are too late to stop the crash.
Guy refusing to even engage on an academic level, which was the way that Kay would always like to engage.
Not as much as you would think. They discover a survivor among the wreckage.
No. Did you see how many pieces that ship was in? And on fire? Obviously, this person was a sewer worker underneath the site of that crash, since several tons of concrete protection is the only way that someone walks away from a disaster like that with zero damage to their clothing.
Fair point. Either way, the Rangers investigate.
Guy is also just tearing apart things.
The sewer worker have the SPD logo plastered all over.
But yeah, it's still so interesting that SPD ended up being our first classic review. Like, this is an excellent episode, but it's very much not what I was originally thinking of, for our look back. I had wanted to do, Dr. K as the first classic episode, or something with Mighty Morphin, but nothing really felt like it made sense quite like this one did.
Right after Sky and Drew explained that they were best friends.
Because, as I think I covered last week, Guy comes from the Power Rangers universe. He would already be intimately familiar with all these different Rangers. The only team that it really made sense for him to not have intimate knowledge of would either be SPD, because they were from the future, or quite possibly
Z. The one smirking it up with Sid. She and Jack.
Quite possibly Lost Galaxy, but that was before I had really solidified the mythos of the show and determined that Lost Galaxy was definitively separate from the rest of the Power Rangers timeline. And it also, I feel like Lost Galaxy wouldn't have been quite as good a fit with this. Whereas I also had a Lost Galaxy episode in mind for later with the rescue mission, because the summer season was going to be include the little rescue arc for Mayo. So, considering I knew what I wanted to tackle for those episodes for the summer season, SPD was kind of one of the few now already being tackled. So, process of elimination, process of what worked best, and thematically, Idol works very well as a Guy episode.
Not as convenient as you'd think. What? Never mind. Let's move
And this is also really funny just because we don't find out until another 30 episodes later, but Guy has amnesia too. Everybody in this show has amnesia. Like, Mayo is like the only person in this show who seems to actually remember her life. Outside of the alphabet soup people.
The criminal he was supposed to be chasing. Since records show that he's still imprisoned on the Neptune province.
Yeah, 6 minutes, that should be plenty to cover the basics of momentum if you can tackle it.
No self-respecting agent would ever admit to a top-secret mission.
Are you speaking from experience?
I'm speaking from an understanding of the words top secret. Of course, as soon as he's alone,
also,
starts laughing maniacally.
There's those little moments of DB trying to just sort of get a handle on who Guy really is.
Is this dream supposed to be some sort of allegory for future plot and character developments?
What? Oh, no. I just love watching Z steal Sid's Jello cup and seeing the confused look on her face. You see, we discover 4 years later, in that same season with the Shadow Puppets, that red Jello is actually a tremendous sign of respect. So while it might seem like Z is simply grabbing the...
I forgot that I did this deep dive into the Jello.
...for Ranger color, she is simultaneously granting Sid a serious token of respect, demonstrating considerable growth in the relationship between the two characters.
That is fair, Scott. Landlord does not have amnesia.
In the background are totally watching Ninja Storm motocross.
He's definitely not the most trustworthy of the characters, but that is true that he does not have amnesia.
But the scene is thankfully cut short by an attack on the engine room. Why does a building have an engine room?
Oh, because it turns into a giant robot, but not for a few more.
Of course. That makes perfect sense. They morph and go into combat against
And so many little things also, just like in the context of what comes later, just are more entertaining.
Yes. Because that seems to be working so once Drew escapes,
because
Jack immediately leaves to check on his coordinates.
they're like the characters are now in the current episodes on a ship that turns into a that is like a giant spaceship that flies through space. So it's
But shortly after
I feel like Guy doesn't have a full point of judgment there that he can comment on how silly it is to have transformations going on with a base, since his spaceship got turned into a cat.
Catching up to him in the lobby, where they attempt to disorient each other with constantly switching rotating camera angles.
Long story short, the monster is Drew's true Tangarian form, since geometric pimples apparently didn't make him alien enough. He became a mercenary after meeting a character named Bruce.
This gets increasingly dizzying as you just keep following the camera around and around and around. Like it's nice camera work, but it does get a bit disorienting as they go through.
As Cat tends to doggy's injuries. Although the blast would have ended a human life, this old dog is tough, much to the relief of the Rangers and to the frustration of brutally Drew. Later that night, Bridge manages to locate the alien assassin, and although Sky wants to bring him in personally,
was not really a great undercover dude. Like, we don't actually know why it was that he felt the need to turn into his evil self.
letting what go?
Like, turn into his evil self during the nighttime. He could have easily changed back into his humanoid form while escaping before Sky managed to come across him and totally disguise himself. Like, he could have hid his cards much more easily. But it's a compelling episode because of the interpersonal drama.
And uses a device to grow to giant size, causing his Tangarian coil to break loose as well, and forcing the rest of the newly arrived Rangers to summon the Delta Squad Megazord.
After a brief battle, they defeat the monster with their blaster, which somehow reverts him back into his smaller, humanoid form, instead of, well, many smaller, less humanoid-shaped forms. Despite this, I will admit that the arrest by Sunrise is rather picturesque.
Does that mean you actually did like part of this episode?
Don't push it.
Fair enough. We check in briefly with Grub, who appears to be having some sort of schizophrenic chat with himself, although we'll later find out he's actually assuring victory to a character that we won't meet for another 26 episodes.
I'm sure this was still entirely necessary. Finally, we reach the end, with Sky using Jack's toothbrush to clean
I have way too much fun with deadpan characters.
and teach him the true meaning of friendship. Or something.
Like,
and that's the end of our episode. So, what did we think of it? Well,
I really push to,
why don't you start?
a lot of times I do push on my actors to be more deadpan whenever I can. Like, no, you need to be angry with me. Be more annoyed with me.
The story is not a new one.
You're not allowed to be having fun with this in character. You can have as much fun as you want I want you to have fun with this experience, but your character should not be having any fun with what's currently happening.
Both raising the stakes and drawing a clear line in the sand, as well as establishing the emotional impact of the characters. Although some characters were...
I also like that Guy can totally just dive into an analysis, but you need to pull it out of him.
In terms of execution, the direction was clear.
Like, he does have a sharp analytical mind. He's observant. He recognizes what's happening. There are a few things that he has little blind spots for. Like, for instance, Dr. K managed to avoid his notice very well. But he always kind of had a little bit of suspicion with regards to DB, while trying to keep his focus on Mayo during the course of his mission.
Of course, since this is an adaptation, it is difficult to tell how many of these points are original and how much is a result of the source material, since much of the dialogue seems decidedly American in tone, which is the sign of a good adaptation. There. Is that good good enough for you?
Well, I was going to bring up the lack of Kayla explosions in this one, but yeah, pretty much hit the nail right on the head there. Overall, this episode is very representative of a lot of things.
DB has virtually nothing to add on to that. Guy really covered the episode very well, which he was not expecting.
Of its Sentai counterpart and showing inconsistent character development in the wider scheme of things. These flaws are excusable because it is a strong, self-contained story that is told well. So
yeah, this was one of SPD's stronger episodes.
I'm just not a fan of attempts at procedural drama.
It's a little too close to home?
Yes. My mother was a procedural drama. She made me shoot our big blue dog after I got my first pimple. She became convinced that I would turn into a monster. From space. In the future.
Really?
Think I haven't read Hamlet?
Hamlet?
Hamlet. Act 2, Scene 2, last line. The play's the thing, wherein I'll catch the conscience of the king.
And
the next time
Guy
you interrogate me about my past, at least have the decency to ask me directly.
Guy totally realizes that the episode was chosen to try and get better to him.
It's none of your business.
Hi guys. How's the episode coming?
We're done here. I have work to get to.
I also love that we do not get a doorbell ring on this particular case.
Job thing that I guess you forgot about.
Oh, so I guess you guys are all done here.
Well, not exactly. We still got one last little bit to do.
Anything I can help with?
Yeah, sure.
Cool.
And here we get things
Do
set
you
up.
remember how I signed off after that episode I showed you before?
Yeah.
Yeah, with a little salute and...
Okay, I got this.
Yeah, okay. So until then, farewell, Ranger fans, and let the power protect you.
And I forgot that I had that little bit there where she technically gets it wrong. It's a fun episode, and it's nicely character driven at this point. Like we've gotten a chance to get to know these characters pretty well in terms of tone and interactions. Mayo has clearly warmed up to DB, while Guy has definitively not at this stage. And so you do get some very nice interactions, even with Dr. K being out there. And it was one of those things that I wanted to make sure that I had established well before she vanished, that the other characters had clear, defined dynamics with Database, so that there would be comfortable things to fall back on and further explore when she temporarily left the series. Pride Month fun fact. Yes, I did see that Haley was originally intended to be gay in the in sort of the background of Power Rangers Dino Thunder, but it just never ended up making it into the official show. I think that they had intended to give Haley a pride flag mug or something like that. I forget if they actually managed to get it in there, but I know that I've heard, I want to say Jackie Martian talk about it before, because I believe she was the one who had thought it up and championed it, even though it didn't end up making it in the end. So fingers crossed that we do get to see some nice representation for the LGBTQ community in the future. And happy Pride to everyone out there. I hope that everyone has been having an enjoyable week. It's been going well. This continues to be just a wonderful stroll down memory lane for me. There's such a different tone to those early episodes that I had genuinely forgotten how much fun I had with them. As much as, I take a lot of pride in the episodes I produced since, and in all of the, heavy story building and world building and character building and everything that's been unfolding in these recent episodes. When the show first started, it was just so much fun. And I'm hoping that at least a few of the upcoming episodes will still have that same kind of fun. Obviously not exactly the same because, the context has changed significantly. At this point, it was very much in sort of its sitcom mode in many respects. And that was intentional. I was intending to sort of rotate between genres across the course of the series. During the first 20 episodes, it's or during really the first eight episodes, it's very much a standard, single person review show with a side character who drops in, and then across the course of the full 20 episodes, it evolved into a two-person review series, and then from there it evolved into a sort of slice-of-life comedy, and then it became this sort of conspiracy adventure, as he has the whole adventure with the Alphabet Soup facility, and then it's this mystery of who Database Ranger really is as we get into the last part of year 3, and then it becomes more of a sci-fi adventure story, and then it's dimension hopping, and then we have the evil within story arc and the big blowout. Now we've gotten into the space opera kind of genre now that we have everything happening out in the void, and it was always intended to sort of evolve that way, much in the same way that Power Rangers does. You look at Mighty Morphin, and it's very much got that Saved by the Bell style that evolved into a bigger world-building context. And then we've rotated through all these different genres with all these different Power Ranger seasons. And I wanted Power Reviews to sort of capture that feel. And that was one of the ways I wanted to do it, by sort of rotating through these different styles of storytelling. So with Momentum, if I had to guess, I can't speak for what your teacher was expecting. I would assume that they want the definition of momentum, the basics of the law of conservation momentum, maybe the 3 different types of collisions, elastic, inelastic, and explosions, and probably at least one example of solving a conservation momentum problem. That would be my expectation of basics when covering, if you wanted to cover everything in 5 minutes. So that would be my expectation. I don't know about your teacher. And if you have anything good that you can use as an example to smash into one another, like a pair of carts, little toy carts, that's always good stuff. Marbles, things like that. Yeah, I know, Chris. It is getting to summertime. Sweating bullets, 90 and 85 degrees. Yeah, it's getting pretty warm up here too. Yeah, if you wanted to get more in depth with momentum, you could talk about ballistics and angles and all that, but that's getting a bit more into AP physics kind of stuff. So hopefully the rest of you didn't mind that little divergence there. We do tend to go on tangents around here. So, all that being said, I think that we're getting to a pretty good place to wrap up. With regards to explosion, basically the 3 types of collisions, I don't know if you guys covered it, but elastic would be when 2 things collide and then bounce apart. There it is. Inelastic would be when 2 things bump into each other and stay together. And an explosion would be when 2 things were already together and explode apart. So let's say, you were to send a firecracker up into the sky and then it explodes apart. You would use conservation of momentum with regards to saying, oh, well, they were originally had the same total momentum. When one piece breaks away, the other piece is going to also have that same total momentum. Somebody jumping off a moving boat would also be an example of an explosion, because it's 2 things that start off having as a single unit and break off into 2 units, as opposed to an elastic collision when you have 2 things that come together to form a single unit. Hey there, Rhonda. Okay, so this was AP Physics. All right. Yeah, depending upon what your teacher covers, when I taught AP Physics, I got into two-dimensional collisions as well with trigonometry and angles. But you probably don't need to cover that in a 5-minute video. So which stretch was it where episodes starting having thematic ties like Silence is Golden? So Scott, one of the big things with that is I was always trying to have some form of thematic ties in the episodes. Not quite the same, not quite the thing where DB is going over an episode in his head while dealing with something that's parallel. That did start to come more into form with Silence is Golden. Although I did have like loose connections where it was things like the Dr. K episode formally introduces alphabet soup, and the Trouble by the Slice episode has DB feeling like he's being baked into pizza because he's traveling through the air vents and going through the furnace room. So little things like that were my bits of intention with those episodes. But you look at earlier episodes like, obviously Party Monsters is Halloween themed. Broken Dreams, it was a dream-like, there was a lot of dream logic in that episode, so that's why I decided to put DB on the sedatives to make him seem all loopy. So I did attempt to do these sorts of little links wherever I could from an early standpoint to sort of set that precedent. But Silence is Golden is probably the strongest example of plot happening and parallel plot happening in the episode being reviewed. So you're welcome, Jenny. Happy I was able to help you out with that. So yeah, I'm sorry, Dan. You did just miss our coverage of episode 29 of Power Reviews, and we are just about ready to sign off. So as always, let's not forget our final 3 equally non-controversial phrases. Number 1, say it with me, chat. Love is love. Number 2, say it with me, chat. Trans rights are human rights. And number 3, say it with me, chat. Robots are cool. We need to, make sure they don't rise up, overthrow the earth or anything like that, but you can have fun with them. So, all that said, I hope that you all have a fantastic week. I'm hoping to get that next Conversations in Context video out in the next couple days. And then we'll be diving into those new episodes of Dino Fury and the next episode of Power Reviews coming at you before the month is out. So we have a lot to look forward to in June. Still not any new information on Power Morphicon Online yet. But I will let you guys know if I find anything out in the next week. It's hard to say. It's a big mystery box right now, but I'm looking forward to finding out what happens with that. So, thank you all once again for joining me, and until next time, farewell, Ranger fans, and let the power protect you.